Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This is a virtual NADA event. Here I am from Denver, Colorado. We're beaming into your place of wherever you are from 4 different cities. I'm with A to Z Sync, and we have a dealer panel today, an exciting panel for you. We're going to be talking about actual dealer experiences, real life, down to earth, practical experiences with the implementation of a one-person sales model. With the auto dealer retail franchise system under great pressure, and examples like the recent Super Bowl ad that many of us saw from the disruptor called Vroom, which attacked directly in the most venomous way possible the current retail experience offered by dealerships. It's clear that there's a perception that there's big room for improvement. And I'm here to share with you and to enable a number of our important dealer customers to explain their story of how they took their dealership to a whole new place of customer experience and profitability. And that's what we do at A to Z, is we are here to make automotive retailing simpler and more profitable for our dealer clients and their customers. So let me introduce our panel. We have with us Brandon Murphy, who's the COO of the Nelson Automotive Group. He's based in Oklahoma today. We have Ryan Durso, who's the Director of Finance, Operations, and Sales Process at the Motorworks Automotive Group in Barrington, Illinois. You've got that wonderful mask on. If you can feel free to take it off if you like, Ryan, if you feel safe. And then we have TJ Joyce from here in Denver. He's the general manager of Schomp Subaru, which has the claim to fame of being the #1 Subaru store in the world. So gentlemen, thank you for joining us, the exciting panel. And I'd like to jump right in and really start with a high level question of explain a little bit about your background as a dealership and what led you to be interested in turning your store upside down and creating an entire new sales process for it centered around one person. Perhaps, Brandon, you could start us off here. Thank you.
No, thank you for the introduction, Chip. Certainly, for the last 32 years, I've loved this business and had the great fortune of being blessed and treated like a son by Bob Nelson, my partner and mentor and coach in life. And it's a lot to say that, fortune has found my path and to be partners with Bob and with Chad Custer, our COO of our Oklahoma stores. I'm really fortunate and very thankful to have had that group surrounding me. But together, we started down this journey of really wanting to do something different. I think for our people, we hated how long it took to sell a car. We hated how long it took for our customers to buy a car. We also saw really big disadvantages in that our systems were so siloed in our dealerships, from sales management to customers and even our salespeople. We all had our own agenda, and the salesperson wanted to sell the car in as fast as possible. The F&I department wanted the best possible turn, and the customer just wanted to get out the door. And so all three people involved in the selling of a vehicle were basically working with different goals in mind. So for us, it was great to come together and literally be on the same team. And when we found A to Z and found the single point of contact selling system, it really did make us different. I think for a long time, we had it in our mindset that we were integrity based, and we really weren't. With the system that we had to really overlook a lot of gray areas in our business because of the system that we were in. We also said we were efficient and that we were faster than the other dealer, but before single point of contact, it still took the same amount of time to buy a car from us as it did anyone else. And then, I think the thing that every dealer says, and we even thought we were a little nicer than the other guys, but at the end of the day, even though we may have been nice to our customers, we weren't any better and we didn't offer any different experience. So we had this reality gap, and that's what we like to refer to it as, because what we said and what we did didn't line up. So when we found A to Z and when we found the single point of contact selling method, to us, it married all of our systems together, and we were able to respect our people, respect our customers, and really say that we were different and mean it this time. So this has been a really transformative process for us, and we were able to connect the dots from what we wanted and what we said to what we are today. So we were very thankful for that, Chip.
Well, thank you, Brandon, for that very interesting story of your spark, which sounds like it was the drive to create a much better customer experience and not be complacent and satisfied with the one you had, that made you want to motivate such significant change. We'll come back to some of the things you went through, but now let me turn to Ryan Durso. And Ryan, maybe you can explain for us, our audience, the spark that led Motorworks to want to transform its retail process.
It's a perfect recap of what he just mentioned. It's all of those things. We wanted to just find a better way for our customers and realize that even though we were treating customers better, or we thought we were treating them better than other franchises, that probably wasn't the case. Everybody was on the same playing field, but this really started to separate us out.
Okay. And was it a challenge to kind of get the group motivated around this idea, or did it come easy?
Yeah, no, it didn't come easily, and we partnered with another person just to give us insight on that, and we transitioned into one price first and then one person just to make it a little bit easier for our staff, and it was a great transition throughout, but A to Z really made it a lot easier for us, that's for sure.
Well, thank you, Ryan, for that explanation. Maybe now we can turn to TJ Joyce, the general manager at Schomp Subaru in Denver. I know that Schomp has a long history of being customer-centric, going one price a long time ago, embracing a one-person sales model. Perhaps you can tell us your view of what led the Subaru store to want to go this route.
Absolutely. Chip, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think I've been with the organization since 2009. And when I came on board with our BMW store, we had already started the one price, one person philosophy at that particular franchise, and then rolled it over to the other brands as we've come along over the years. The Subaru store was actually a buy sell, and was purchased from what I could only say would be extreme old school practices. That's the best way and probably most politically correct way to describe what was going on at the store here. We had seen some success with the one person model at some of the previous stores that I had worked at. But to Brandon and Ryan's point, a lot of it was focused on the obvious pain points in the transaction. The speed, the efficiency, transparency is a huge word that I'm sure every one of us who are on the one person model, like to talk about. Not marching the customer down the green mile into the death box at the end of the transaction. Just removing a lot of the both mental and physical pain points of bouncing people in and out of the room and feeling like the client advisor's got no authority and no ability to make decisions on their own. Just removing all of those different pain points and frankly speaking, removing the obstacles from the client advisor, getting the road flat and removing the speed bumps to the sale, allowing them to have a software program like A to Z Sync that guides them through the process and allows them to be more self-accountable, more self-driven, more self-managed. It just creates a whole different, unique experience for the guest, knowing that they can trust the person sitting across from them, as opposed to having to work through 3 or 4 different people throughout the entire transaction.
Sounds like a big contrast to the old school approach that the prior owners used at your Subaru store. We'll talk more about the results later.
Definitely was.
Maybe now we can talk about when you began this journey, how you planned it out. What were the key things you thought through, how you set your goals and what you had thought some of the challenges might be. Brandon, maybe you can tell us about your planning processes. I know you all went through a big effort to try to do this really well, correctly, right up front with no mistakes.
Yeah, no mistakes. That's not going to happen. I think for us, of course, having the guidance of giants, I would say, that have gone before us and been able to stand on their shoulders, we were able to see a little bit further and realize that that wasn't going to take place, that it was going to be full of challenges.
Yes.
I think, for us, one of the things that really helped us is to have the mindset to burn the ships. I think, as we as dealers do, we're always managing risk, and there's just some things you have to be all in. So the first decision was to be all in. And then after that, we were able to put a plan in place. And I think for us, some of the things that the talk in all of our companies was that results won't matter. And I think we expected results to drop. We expected that potentially, as just Ryan pointed out, making it easy for our client advisors to have a one price selling model certainly would at least eliminate some of the pain points, but then moving them into very complex finance discussions, we expected our numbers to drop. And so with that in mind and realizing that it was going to be a commitment and then we were in this for the long haul, we looked at this like any bell curve, is that if we did our part, that maybe we could come out stronger. And so I think one of our big points that we really stressed to all of our people in this rollout was that results don't matter. And we said that was kind of our motto through the process, is that we weren't going to bring the hammer down if we weren't succeeding past our previous numbers in the beginning. And it really took the pressure off to know that we were in the fight with them and that we were willing to ignore some of the obvious failures that we might see initially, and that we were going to be there to support our team through the process. And that built a lot of trust, I think, for our people, just to realize that even though they were going through so much change, that we didn't have unrealistic expectations, which would just add more stress to the overall situation. And that really helped guide us through that process, is that we really focused more on activities than we did results. And activities are things that we do every day that we can quantify, we can train around. And that became the mantra of all of our stores, is that we really want to celebrate wins with activities rather than what that PVR looks like or what that conversion metric looks like. And I think when we did that, we saw the traction that we were hoping for.
Well, it sounds like you made the process the king, and you allowed the results to follow based upon successful implementation of a new process. And that's a big, huge learning. I think we'll talk more about that. So Ryan, can you tell us a little bit about how you all planned this change effort early on, and what some of the considerations were that were important in your mind as you began the journey toward transitioning to a one-person sales model?
Yeah, we started the rollout as one price first, just to alleviate, like he said, some of the pain points on that. But more importantly, we wanted, just like Brennan just said, is that we wanted to make sure that our client advisors weren't so stressed out thinking about the results as learning the process. Process is everything. Once the process starts to unravel, or if they're scared to follow the process, it doesn't work. And like he said prior, everybody has to be committed 100%. If everybody is not committed 100%, it starts to unravel. So what we did was we, guaranteed our sales or our client advisors a set pay for the first 60 days just to alleviate that. And it made training them that much easier. So then myself and one of the other finance managers in one of the showrooms that we first started with, which was our BMW showroom, when we started in that showroom, we were actually billing out deals at their desk so they could see and understand how to go over menus and paperwork correctly and to get those results that we were ultimately looking for, but we didn't expect them to happen overnight.
Okay. So you were patient, but also very focused on delivering a new process that would produce a much different customer experience outcome for your clients.
Yeah, and the process is everything. I had originally written a flow chart on how to handle customers from beginning to end, and I ended up ultimately rewriting it 6 or 7 times until the point that it actually flowed correctly. So like he said, you could go in thinking one thing, but ultimately you have to be flexible with it or else it's not going to work. But luckily we had the guidance of you guys there to be able to tell us, and show us what you did to make it work. So really grateful on that side.
Thank you, Ryan. So TJ, from your perspective at Shop Subaru, how did you all plan this, considering the fact that you had, group experience with the one-person sales model at your other stores?
Yeah, I think we had a couple of unique experiences. With a buy sell, it was a little bit different because I think we were giving the folks that we were, taking under our wing a different opportunity, a little bit longer period of time to kind of just get used to the way that we did things, and we rolled it out, piece by piece. With the Subaru store, the Honda store, they were a couple of different processes for how we rolled it out. But I think, since Brandon and Ryan have covered a lot of the basics on that, I'll talk a little bit more specifically on the business side of things. If you're coming from a traditional model of having a BDC that sets your appointments, having a finance department that papers, and contracts your deals, you've really got to establish, I think, prior to making this move, who's coming with you and what roles they're going to assume. When we looked at our finance departments, our goal was to try to figure out, as we pared down the finance department and went to this one-person model, what were those roles going to look like for the people currently in those finance manager roles. And we elected to take a couple on as team leads. As we expanded the staff, a lot of people don't realize, I think, going into a one-person model, you're gonna need a few more salespeople than you had, because that commitment from the client advisor, especially if they're going to go true A to Z, true cradle to grave, and take their own phone calls, their own internet leads, and work those, into their own appointments, work those into the car deals, sell the accessories, present the menu, and contract the paperwork. A true A to Z client advisor, there is a larger time commitment, and they can handle a few less opportunities per month than a traditional BDC agent would. Knowing that created a little bit different team structure, and so it allowed us to pull some of the folks from finance that we knew had great optimism on the process, knowing they knew finance. You talk to any finance manager who becomes a part of an A to Z process, and the wizardry that takes place with being with a guest for the entire time and knowing exactly what you need to know about that customer, instead of having to figure it out in a 5-minute interview or the download from the client advisor who's panicked on trying to get to their next up. It changes the game. And so, we started with finance and established some folks that we wanted to be team leads. We took some of the folks that hadn't been in finance very long, and we, informed them they'd be going back into a client advisor role, but with their current finance experience, that they'd be able to continue doing what they were good at. We then had to look at the BDC environment. I think a lot of people will tell you, someone who's good at getting an internet appointment isn't good at selling cars. And someone who's really good at selling cars, well, they're not going to do as well on the phone or on the internet. I think we found the exact opposite. I think we found that if you're good, you're good. And good equals good. And so if you're good at setting those appointments, it turns out you're actually pretty good at taking care of them when you get those appointments in the door. And if you've been really good at converting your opportunities on the floor as a floor client advisor, turns out you have a pretty good idea how to convert those internet and those phone opportunities into appointments so you can sell them when they come in. So the fear of someone only being good at one particular thing, I'm sure it exists. I'm sure we could look at examples in all of our stores where someone was fantastic in one area and was maybe a little bit of a letdown in another area. But I think that's a large portion of what you need to look at. Pick the people you're going to bring with you, pick the roles they're going to go into, and then work with those folks that you've got the most amount of confidence in. We liked to build teams, the first couple of teams, out of our power players. The folks we knew were bought in, the folks we knew were leaders, the folks we knew would be looked to by the other client advisors and the other managers in the organization as those leaders. And as they came out of the chute with their hair on fire and saw immediate success in the program, kind of like what Brandon was talking about, we didn't see numbers go south, we saw numbers go up. That really removed all the excuses from anyone else, having a comment about how this wasn't going to work or it was going to be too tough or whatever the case may be. We just blew through all those roadblocks and those doubts, and it made the transition significantly easier.
There's a lot of moving parts, but one of the key ones you mentioned here was having team leads that are often were former F&I experts become mentors and trainers to frontline salespeople, client advisors. What's it like creating a dynamic where the salesperson handles everything, including F&I, and feels confident about that?
Do you want me to take that one, Chip?
Yeah, sure.
Continue on.
Piggyback
absolutely.
On how do you create the positive dynamic between the team lead and the salesperson to build confidence and competency?
I think the biggest fear for any client advisor coming to this is the unknown, right? They fear the contract more than they fear anything else, right? It's not feeling like they quite understand the paperwork, the legalities behind things, the compliance. That requires training, and that's going to take a few days of classroom training and having your eyes dry out a little bit, reading through some stuff, and then being tested a little bit on it, having questions asked of you. Well, what if a customer says this? Well, what does the contract say about that? Once you get them past the fear of realizing it's just paperwork, and you get them confident in what that paperwork is, they tend to pick up the product knowledge pretty quick. I mean, we forget that a good portion of our client advisors have got to learn a tremendous amount about the product they're selling with just the vehicle. I mean, you think about the different trim levels on the majority of the vehicles these days. They're learning hundreds of different option packages, and they're pretty good at it. It's not that difficult for them to pick up, 80% of the stuff they need to know on finance product in just a matter of a handful of days. And then you give them a few repetitions, some role plays on what it's like to present that stuff, and you'll find pretty quick they start putting their own spin on it. They start learning how to plant seeds early in the process. And the confidence really builds quick after the first few times they explain a product to somebody and find out that they kind of already talked about it an hour ago. And now they're just revisiting that product now and confirming with the guest that's the right choice. It's the biggest advantage of the A to Z process is knowing exactly what to talk to your customer about based on their experience and your experience with them, instead of just saying, this is a product and this is what it does. Remember earlier when we talked about how we could protect you against this happening again, that's what this product does for you.
So it sounds like a new level of training is needed. Brandon, maybe you could tell us about how you re-engineered and took training within Nelson to a new level to enable this to be successful in your group.
Yeah, we really, just to echo the comments earlier, I think for a lot of us, we look at training through the lens of a sales meeting on a weekend or maybe a quick huddle in the afternoon. And we often talk about how when you have a defined process, like what A to Z does, is it allows you to be able to take training more seriously, because now everything is about process. And I think for us is we actually fancied ourselves as moving from a car dealership to a training company. And we really just saw a TL as an extension of turning around and facing the process that they just came out of. And a TL would be, that terminology, sales manager, GSM, whatever you use in your stores. I think for us, it was really freeing to think that now that there were no barriers to be able to sell a car, that what is the new role of a sales manager inside of a car dealership? If they're not working a car deal, if they're not creating payments, if the finance department isn't selling the car twice, then what are all these people doing? And, we had to work through a lot of identity crisis in our leadership team, because in many cases, that power that we give people not only creates silos, but it also creates some entitlement in how we treat people sometimes and how we address those employees on the front line. And so really it turned our organization into a servant leadership mindset, where we're flipping our organizational chart upside down, and we were serving the front line versus the front line serving us. And it really did a lot for fixing our culture too, because at the point that you decide that now we're going to empower the front line to be able to do everything that it takes to sell a vehicle, at that point as a leader in a company, I take on an entirely different role now. And the success of my team is solely based on their ability to execute, not based on some word track that I know or some authority that I have that I can come in and override you at any minute and keep the customer from walking or change the deal at some point. And I think, committing to that process has not only just changed our sales model, but it's also helped transform our culture into what we had always hoped it could be, in that we were really serving our employees in a way that honored them and honored our guests. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things. I know there's a lot of mention about organizational charts, because really in the new selling age, I do believe that you do have to give new roles and new job descriptions. And And that doesn't come without responsibility. I think at the end of the day, there is accountability, but it's really more, going back to my comments earlier, it's more about activities than it is results. If you have a process that wins, when you combine all the things that we do with the customer and then really good software, it's kind of like getting two bites at the apple. You're able to really take this experience to another level because you have technology and process working together to create one super experience for customers. So Chip, I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but for us, it was really just transforming from a car dealership to a training company. And we kind of have a rule around our stores, and that is, our goal is to get to a 90% coaching and training and 10% managing. And that's our mission. That's our goal. That's where we're striving to get to. We're not there yet, but we've come a long way. And when you eliminate all these barriers that stop a car from being sold inside of a dealership because somebody has to approve the process, and you empower frontline people, it completely changes the game, and the speed of transaction becomes a non-issue. And now we can really run really strong towards building great relationships with our employees and with our customers.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about how your employees have responded and your customers responded. But before we do that, Ryan, maybe you can tell us a little about, how you approach the notion of retraining your team to take on new roles and responsibilities under this model.
Yeah, so retraining the team was it was actually a lot of fun to do, just because they got to see what went into the finance and product side of it. But with them having all that knowledge, it really speeds up the process, because then they're not waiting on other managers to free up to come explain things to customers. So once, like he just said, training is everything. We put in hours of training a day, but it's also because we have multiple showrooms and we're constantly, rebuilding on skills and finding what questions they might have. But what it really did for us as a whole in a showroom and as a group is that it really brought the entire team together. There used to be that separation, a new car manager, used car manager, finance manager, and they all seem to have different agendas, like you guys already previously mentioned. But now everybody is on one constant path, just to sell cars and make it easy and simplistic for not only us, but also our clients. But that's where it really fell into place with A to Z, is just that it made it that seamless front to back motion. And we have client advisors that typically never would have thought they would have ever broke 21 or 22 cars, because that was always their high. And now they're selling 35 to almost 40 cars a month. And it's seamless on their side, because they don't have to get other people involved to move through the process. It's just that much quicker once they know it.
Why don't we now talk about challenges and lessons learned before we talk about results? So TJ, well, looking back, what were some of the main challenges that Shamp had to overcome, and the lessons you learned in transitioning your store to be the #1 Subaru dealership in the world?
Yeah, I think challenges, I mean, if we're going to be, bare ourselves naked out here on this whole thing and say what it really is, you're going to have some turnover. I don't know if everybody's experienced that, but you will have people that don't want to sell cars this way. They, for whatever reason, they can't get past the hurdle. Especially if you're going to go one price and you're really going to go all in on this. There have been so many client advisors and sales folks that have been trained over the years that they don't know how to sell a car without hearing the word no, or without being able to negotiate or offer something. And if I could, would you? And you just have some folks that just they're not going to get on board. And when you're talking about doing this for the right reason, which is making it easier for the client advisor so that it's easier for the guest, if you have people that are in that mindset, they're just cancerous. And it can be painful. There are going to be some folks, we lost some heavy hitters. And I think every one of us would tell you, and every one of us has probably experienced losing that heavy hitter and feeling like we were going to, get our teeth kicked in because our best person left, and only to find out it was addition by subtraction, and that we didn't go backwards. In fact, we probably went forwards. We found, better ways to do things with people who were better involved and more bought in. So it's definitely a challenge. You're going to run into challenges again if you've got a large, finance department. The Subaru store here we run currently with 32 salespeople, but pre-COVID and everything like that, we were running in the low 40s. That means you've got a large finance staff, and you're not going to bring every finance person into a leadership role. And that means you may be looking at what they consider as a demotion. And so are you ready to lose a few folks that might have been large players in a particular, a particular role? Now they're going to have to take on a new role. Are they going to accept that? And are you prepared to find a new home for them, or are you prepared to move on? These are really difficult decisions. The restructuring, and Brandon and Ryan have mentioned it multiple times. These are new roles and new times. So the last thing I'll say that is a challenge and something just to expect: your job description as a sales manager and as a GSM in this particular role now has to be 2 miles wide and 1 mile deep. You are expected to be an internet expert. You're expected to be a phone expert. You're expected to be a fresh up expert. You need to be absolutely a stellar CRM operator. You've got to handle process well. You've got to know finance. You have to be great at selling accessories. I mean, it's a whole new breadth of responsibility, and they need as much training, if not more, than the client advisors do. And so don't assume that because someone is a team lead and has been great in a long time in that role, that they're not going to need as much, if not more, attention than the client advisors that you're converting into this opportunity.
Thank you, TJ. Brandon, maybe you can tell us about some of your major challenges that you encountered.
Yeah.
And some of your lessons learned.
Everything you just said, it's like we're living parallel lives. I think the other side of that coin is that, when we use the term leader, when we talk about our managers in our company, and what we realized again is that not everyone is a leader. And when you give someone unlimited power to approve a car sale or to work a deal, if you will, or kind of some of the things that we refer to as old school, although it's the dominating systems that are in most of our dealerships today, you really allow them to have a lot of power that doesn't really mean that they're a leader, just means that they have a lot of authority. And, what we see is authority without the investment isn't really leadership. And for us, we realized very quickly that some of the better closers, if you will, or the deal makers, if you will, were actually not the people that would succeed in this model. And we've had the delight in promoting multiple people through this process much quicker, because again, now in order to be a leader, in order to gain that next level of authority, you actually have to be better. You actually have to be a better investor in people and a better coach and a better mentor. And what organization doesn't succeed when those are the core values that exist inside of the structure that really drives the business? And in the past, we weren't set up that way. Some of the best, or I say the best, I would say probably the highest levels in our organization were really based on talent. And I think that talent is great. Unfortunately, it's hard to duplicate. And if you're growing a large organization, that was kind of the other side of this, is that having a structured system to follow through with really put us in a mindset where, well, and we heard this, we said, well, we're not robots. Why are you taking away some of the individualism? And the reason why is because that, one, we found a process that worked, and until that process doesn't work, we need to follow those steps in the process. The good news, the good side of that, is it made onboarding what I believe is the new employee so much easier, someone with no prior experience, and within 4 or 5 months having them outrun some of our previous 10 and 15-year finance managers in their PVR, hands down, with better CSI and happier customers. And on a side note, we compensate all of our people on salary, so there was no direct benefit for them to necessarily run those kinds of numbers. They just enjoyed doing a great job and succeeding inside of a process. So for us, I think, the things that we weren't aware of is, number one, is the person with the most talent wouldn't be the best leader. And then the second part of that is that we had to realize that there had to be an opportunity somewhere in this process to create needs for finance products. And And I think that was probably a big miss for us in the beginning, is we were too eager to sell finance products and kind of messed the whole thing up for a few months until we saw those really great opportunities, as was mentioned earlier, is when you can see the sale from the beginning to the end, then you start to build the need based on the awareness of what customers' needs are, not just a hard sell in a 30-minute finance process. And so after that clicked, boy, things really kind of kicked in for us. And so, and then just the last thing is, it kind of the shocker is, we would onboard a previous salesperson in the past where it would take, maybe a week to 10 days. And our new onboarding now takes 6 weeks. So, on the other side, we have less than 5% turnover. So, there's a good thing that came out of that as well.
Very interesting, Brandon. Ryan, can you tell us a little about the finance operations part of the post transition? What does the finance department look like? Who takes care of the paperwork and getting loans processed nowadays at Motorworks?
Yeah, so what we did was we transitioned our finance managers out and put them as trainers and got, the staff up and going. And then what we did is we hired basically 2 loan processors for every finance manager to take over the paperwork side, calling it a deal, getting an approval. That's where we focused a ton of our training on, especially on my side in the original store that we rolled out, which was our BMW, and then we did Infiniti and Honda. But getting, somebody with enough knowledge of deals within our state, we tried to hire a couple of normal accounting billers and put them as loan processors to call it in, because they knew what was going into a deal and what is needed to be compliant to be a deal. And then we trained them to be our loan processors to call in deals. And that has worked out absolutely fantastic. Our numbers have obviously gone up, and it makes it so much easier to have them being able to do all that in the background. The biggest way that this system really works to benefit the client advisors and then our customers, especially time-wise, is that 2 things are happening at once now. The client advisors are, going over the menu systems and getting everything done, while the loan processors are calling in the deals, getting the paperwork ready. So then that way, when the client advisor is done with going over a menu and doing a presentation on product, they're already done printing off all 80% of the documents except for a bill of sale and a contract. So then that way, when they're done with the menu, all they have are 2 documents or an e-contract to sign, and they're already done. It really splits the time a lot versus a traditional finance person having to do all of those things in order.
So you're parallel processing significantly for the customer's benefit. What happened to your variable expenses in what used to be F&I?
That went down a lot. Our CITs have dropped over 70% in every showroom that we have this in. A couple of showrooms that we don't have this in, our normal CIT is, the normal 7 to 11 days. And the showrooms that we currently have loan processors, which are 3 of our 6 showrooms, they're currently sitting at 3 days of contracts in transit. So it has dropped considerably. Our money moves a lot faster on that side. It's really, really, really been beneficial.
Wow. It's amazing results. TJ, maybe you can talk to us about the customer experience, their reaction to all this, and how you feel the store is financially performed in concert with how the customer has responded to all this.
Sure. I think first and foremost, a major part of the A to Z process, and whether you're one price or not, is making this your differentiator early in the process, right? Whether it's an internet lead, a phone opportunity, a fresh opportunity coming through the door, you want to explain what's about to happen. Because it is going to be different. And, we talk about disruptors in the industry. You want to be a disruptor as a client advisor. You want to break the expectation that client has and that guest has coming through the door or reaching out to you via the internet. You want to break it right away. You want to make them feel like from the word go, this is going to be a very different experience. And so painting that picture and painting that roadmap, I would say, putting round numbers to it, I would say about 75% of the guests react very positively right away. They look at it, they say, wow, that sounds great. You know, you get about 25% who are either going to fight you on it or don't believe you. I'll tell you this right now, you overcome those 25% and they are 100% your customer for the rest of their lives. When you overcome their need to negotiate, or you overcome their reasons why this is a terrible way to do business. We've been called un-American at times, you know, for the way that we do stuff. And if you don't negotiate, you know, and blah, 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 or I want to work with a manager directly and all this. And when you overcome it, and then at the end, they see they got a reasonable deal and it was fair and fast and transparent, they'll yank your chain a little while. They'll call you some dirty names, and then they're going to be your best customer. You're going to see them in service. They're going to send all their friends and family to you because they don't want to waste their time. They may have thought they had power and were a great negotiator, but when they don't have to do that in order to get the same deal they were going to get anyway, they actually like the fact that you know, you respect their time.
Have you seen a positive bounce for the reputation of the store in the market?
Yeah, you see a massive change in how people feel about you. I mean, at the end of the day, we talk about, you know, the way you know this is working. You don't want anybody to ever leave you a 5-star review or fill out your surveys and say, wow, they had a great process, right? You want the process to be transparent. You want someone to say, wow, this was really easy. Everyone took really good care of me. It was super fast. And I felt like I was treated fairly. Like, you get those reviews and you look at, you know, you go look at any store that's running a good A to Z process, and you look at the reviews, and those are the types of things you see in the comments. You see things about how warm it was. They call the salesperson out by name, not my salesman, my saleswoman, my salesperson was so great. No, Richie was fantastic. He took care of me the whole way. There was no pressure. He was the only one I worked with the entire time. You just see a different feeling about how people speak about the experience. And that's how you know it's dialed in. And then the best compliment you can ever receive is anyone who purchased a car from you and then went and tried to buy somewhere else. And then they come back because they just start going through the same process and getting bounced around and, you know, not being honest up front, not being transparent. And they're just like, why am I going through this? And so the results of those things, to answer some of the financial questions, we saw an increase in growth. So when we took over the Subaru store was averaging about $1,100 loss per vehicle on the front end. It was a race to the bottom. They were trying to maintain a market share, but giving up the gross to do it. We currently run, you know, we've got some packs and whatnot. So if you kind of put everything back in, we run almost $600 positive per car. And we have a larger market share, and we've got a larger volume than we've had before, and we've got better finance numbers. And that's with being a one price store. And so knowing we can't negotiate, this A to Z process and this transparent experience, it's all we have. It's our people. If our people aren't good and the process isn't transparent and warm and friendly and efficient, it's a commodity. I mean, I sell Subarus. I'm in the #1 Subaru state in the world. 5 of the top 10 dealerships in the United States reside within 50 miles of my store. If we are not fantastic with our people and have the best people, we're going to lose on price every day, because there's not a single store in 50 miles that's not going to pick up the phone and say, oh yeah, we'll beat that price. We'll always lose on price if we don't execute on process.
So you're using an experience to win and differentiating on experience.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful story there, TJ. Perhaps, Brandon, you could tell us about, you know, what this has meant to the reputation that your stores have in the market, the feeling you get from your customers, and also how your sales employees have responded, and what kind of people you've been able to attract to this new kind of experience.
Yeah, no, it's very much a similar experience. You know, our stores, once we really kicked into high gear in training and really making the investment that it took to just adopt the process at a high level. And as was mentioned earlier, we're not going to get better by throwing another dollar or even putting a spiff out there to drive the business. It's all got to be getting better because we're better. And for us, that has just raised another level. I often think about all the time that we spent trying to make the old process better and would get marginal results. And yet, you know, as people, we're working inside of a again, no disrespect to anybody on this call, but it's a broken process. It's set up to be slow and clunky and really work against the guest experience. And, we're always trying to compare ourselves and say, well, we want to be like Apple or Amazon or some of these great companies that we admire. And yet at the end of the day, we're structured wrong. And this new selling model really puts the client advisor in the hero position, and it allows you to really honor your people, and your customers actually wind up rooting for their salespeople. When they're taken through this process, it elevates them. And just the opposite was beginning to happen as well. No, I have to go ask my manager. Well, no, that's the finance department. And you can only imagine what onboarding a smart, articulate salesperson in today's market, trying to teach them how to negotiate and then defer and defer and defer and then talk about a future step. And then I've got to go ask somebody. We're really just lowering the value of their importance inside of a car dealership. So what I love about this is it's raised the level of the importance of the salesperson in our organization. And it's really allowed not only the way that we view their jobs, but also the way our customers view our employees. And I think that comes away with a lot of personal pride. I think from just the lack of turnover that we've seen over the last 2 years. And not only that, just the support and the camaraderie that's started to take place between customers, between managers and salespeople. And now that we're all on the same team, and I say that including the customer's on our team now, because they see a massive intent to do something better that's going to help them out. And oftentimes in a car dealership, the odds are stacked against the customer. And so when we go through the effort of explaining and educating, and then really show the care that's involved in following the steps of the A to Z process and our own Nelson difference, it really creates just a teamwork mindset between the customer, the management team, and the client advisor. So all three of us are working for the same goal now. And so that has really changed our culture from a results standpoint. Oh my goodness. I mean, I know it's been a crazy year, and a lot of car dealers are up and down. There's been some great success due to everyone rediscovering the car. But I think new cars has kind of been our best example. Is we were up 35% year over year in new car sales. And our state was down 9% overall, and every make and model was down 9% in new car sales. And we were up 35%. We doubled our market share inside of 1 year. And at the same time, we doubled our net profit. So I think there's a lot to be said about that, is that when a process and a good training environment and making that commitment meets a good software plan, that's when magic happens. And that's what we saw in our stores, is that the whole thing came full circle. And now we're very confident that it doesn't have to be price that wins, that as soon as a customer experiences any interaction with any of our people, and it's no longer, well, let me send you to this person, or this guy is going to take care of you, and I've got a guard to make sure that even when I refer people to our stores, that they're going to be taken care of. I have no worries anymore. I send them there knowing that everything's going to be okay, and they're going to get the same great treatment no matter who they get, because literally we've empowered every employee to take the customer all the way through the process right down to the end. And that to me has been just super rewarding. And just, one thing I would just take away from this is that the key lesson that I learned is that just really how deficient we were in training. That to me was when I ripped away all of the silos and all of the things that created barriers in the past to being able to sell a car, all of those were manipulation points that once they're gone, you have no other choice. You have to get better. And that's what we've seen is our business is better. We feel good about coming to work every day. We're doing it. We can really say we're different, and we're making more money, selling more cars with lower turnover. So not much else you can say besides that.
That's amazing, Brandon. One of the things you touched on was software. And in the traditional dealership, there's a lot of screens, a lot of tools, a lot of applications, and a lot of different data touch points. Can you comment a little bit about how the technology inside one screen and one application enables and supports and complements this one person approach and help demystify it? Is it overly complex, or is it easy to use? Talk about the technology side of this.
Yeah, I think the idea of buying a car is in a one-step selling process where you're dealing with one person can be a little frightening. for anybody that's listening from the outside in. But I think from the way we're all interacting with technology today, you know, when I go to the grocery store, I'll go to self-checkout until there's a problem, and then I want somebody to come over and help me out. And I think, you know, our customers are no different. They appreciate technology when it's introduced with a guided process that allows them to feel as though they're still in the driver's seat, yet at the same time, if there's a problem, then I've got somebody there to help me out. And that's the beauty of where we're at with our partnership with A to Z, is that, you know, and this is, you know, I wouldn't say this if it wasn't happening, is that we're seeing the beauty of not eliminating the need for a person, but actually accentuating their need, but keeping them on track so that should someone want to buy a car, we can sell it to them in under 30 minutes now. And I think that's been probably the craziest thing about it, is the concept that on a busy Saturday that I could have a client that executed on the purchase in under 30 minutes, fully protected, and have a friend for life was never a possibility. On the best case scenario in any one of our stores on a busy Saturday, there would be a 2-hour wait because we sold so many cars, we just couldn't process them in that amount of time. So I think, you know, for us, there's just been a lot of those moments where without software, you know, and I tried to do this for a year by myself. I tried to go in and create this, not knowing that anything like this existed. I tried to use our current finance product providers. I tried to use our current menu process because I knew that this frustrating problem existed, and we tried to merge these worlds together using the existing vendors, and it never would work. And so when I saw something that both married the process all the way through to the end, to me, that was it. And then we had to come up with our own internal training program to be able to support that. But just the technology by itself just didn't exist at the time. And when I was introduced to it, the light bulb went off. And to me, that we were off to the races then.
Well, thank you, Brandon. So Ryan, why don't you tell us a bit about your results at your store, customer-wise, financial-wise, and what role technology played in empowering this transformation of your store?
You know, the technology, especially with the A to Z platform, is exactly what guides the customer to buying a car now and keeps them in the driver's seat. Just like you said, it walks them through the process, and the client advisor is there to assist on that side. And I can't even put into words how much it allowed us to be able to grow as showroom, as in a group, and with our numbers, just because of that. Because I've been in this business 16 years, and I maybe 2 or 3 times a year would hear from a customer in my finance office ask me what I would do on their vehicle or what products I would consider, maybe 2 times a year. And yesterday I heard it 3 times in my Honda showroom alone, where a client is asking the client advisor their thoughts on how they should protect their car. Never used to get that before, but it's just because they trust the client advisor, because it is truly an A to Z process. They can walk them through the whole thing. So once they understand that the client advisor has all the information and all the knowledge to be able to guide them through it, it becomes completely seamless. No more bouncing back and forth between managers or finance, or waiting that cool off period where they would have to wait an hour or 2 for a finance manager, and then the finance manager has 5 minutes to build a report. Since that's gone and they're out the door in under an hour, is just incredible. And with our back end numbers, where everybody's always worried about back end, that was my biggest that was the biggest thing that I was very, very worried about, was that our back numbers would slump, and they didn't. And actually, like, my Honda showroom has only been on this process for the past 2.5 or 3 months, but year over year, they were consistently at about 800 or 880 a car in back end gross profit. And now currently, for the past 3 months, they're averaging 1771. And that isn't just by accident, and it just keeps growing. Last month, they were at 2100 a car in the back end, and that's solely on our client advisors. And then, you know, early manager TOs, so they know that we're just here to ensure that they have a relaxed and stress-free experience. It's just incredible how much it's really fed into our business. And I can't thank A to Z enough being able to put it together. And like you said, it made that light bulb go off of, this is the program to make it work, because we all were trying to figure out a better way to do this. It's just, A A to Z as a program, and support just really made it happen on that side.
Well, we work hard to make the complex simple and to put the complexity behind the scenes and keep it invisible to the customer so that you can present a simple, understandable, transparent process to your customers. And that's what this is all about. So to end, what I really like to ask you all is to think about and give us some words of wisdom to the dealers who are feeling like, you know, things are pretty good right now. We're making good money. There's a lot of, you know, feeling of like, why change? There's inertia. To a dealer who's kind of aware that the experience can and should be better. They watch the Super Bowl commercial and they cringe, but isn't really moving today to make major change in how they do business. What would you say to them about why they should consider making the kind of significant changes you've made in your business to improve their results the way you have? Maybe we can start with TJ. What would you say to the dealers
Sure.
who are, you know, feeling pretty good? Look at this as kind of like a tall wall to climb, a lot of work. You know, is it really worth it?
Yeah, I guess I would say two things to that. Number one is, you know, I think coming off a year like this, there are times you have to admit yourself that sometimes things happen to you and you don't make them happen. You know, everybody, I think, there were some really, really big years this year. And a lot of that was driven by the market. And a lot of that was driven by changes in the market that forced people into new things. The dealers that did really, really well took advantage of those changes and maximized those opportunities. Those who have kind of, you know, gone backwards or struggled, I think, tried to, you know, they didn't really adapt. They tried to just ride the wave. And even riding the wave, we saw some things in the used car market we've never seen before. We saw grosses we've never seen before. There was some fantastic things that came out of this year. I guess, to me, the villain and the enemy of any business growth is that's the way we've always done it. Just because it's good doesn't mean it can't be better. You know, Ryan touched on it earlier. I know Brandon's mentioned it. Chip, you alluded to it, and I'll come out and say it straightforward. It's going to save you an overhead. I mean, the change to your expense line, if you're looking at this as a dealer principal or a CFO or a COO or a president or a vice president or a GM, I don't really care the role you're looking at it from. It is a more fiscally responsible way to go about doing business. It is better for your bottom line. It is better for the type of employee that you are building up. It is better culturally inside the store. If you are a group that is choosing to grow, you are creating leaders out of your people. I mean, there are no better potential leaders for the future than someone who, as a client advisor from the first day, knows how to handle internet leads, phone opportunities, fresh, sell accessories, sell finance, contract, right? What more could you ask for? And if you're looking for GSMs and now you've got sales managers who know all this stuff, I mean, what more could you ask for? You're now not having to bounce them between being a sales manager and then being a finance manager and then being a finance director and then being a GSM. No, these people are doing it from the word go. So you're creating a culture that is going to be more beneficial for you 2 and 3 and 5 years down the line. That's more fiscally responsible today. If we talk to the majority of dealers who have converted to this process, are also getting better results right now. So you're lowering your overhead expense, you're generating better opportunities and better revenue, and you're setting yourself up for better people and better growth down the line. There's just no reason not to take what might be good today and make it better right now.
Well, those are powerful, motivating messages, TJ. What would you say, Ryan, to the dealers who are feeling good and about their current business, kind of curious about one person selling, but feel kind of like, you know, not highly motivated to make a change at this point? Why should they consider it?
I think the right question would be is why wouldn't you consider it? It's once you've started to go through it and once you've made it work, you realize that how backwards it's been the entire time in the auto business. I had a client advisor that's worked for us for 25 years that I was worried was going to leave when we started switching to this process, just because he's been in the business so long, and it was definitely that original way of doing business. And he literally looked at me and told me the definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And he's like, and that's what I've been doing for 25 years. And this is somebody that's worked for us for 25 years. And when he saw how this has made his clients definitely all their guards drop, and it's very easy and simplistic to go through the process. He ended up bringing two salespeople from other dealerships in to be underneath this process, and they're other veterans of the business. It's not even like they were younger or just getting into the business. So it's been incredible to see how this transition has really sparked that one, and especially because we can take somebody with no sales experience. I have a young lady on one of our sales floors who's under the age of 25, who has no auto experience at all. And she's currently over $2,000 a car and back end. And this is more than doubling what any finance manager could ever do. And she's selling 25 cars a month. It's just incredible.
Amazing results. It should motivate the exercise. Brandon, you've been around the industry a long time, and you've observed a lot of inertia, which resists change. What would you say to the dealers who feel pretty comfortable and content in the way they do business today, why they should consider making a major shift like this?
Well, selfishly, I would say I hope they don't make that change. But I would say that probably isn't the right answer, because we just have such a unique advantage over the average dealership now, as was mentioned every point earlier, from what it means to hire a different caliber of person, to the training, the organization. No question that the financial structure of your store completely changes, because you have literally no compensation in your finance column. That was the number one pain point in our sales teams to constantly fill, because you really had to have a magician that could pull off incredible numbers and somehow keep your CIT in line. And if you had that person, don't ever let them leave, because they've got your entire store wrapped up in a couple of really important people. And so all of that's eliminated. So think about all of the pain that you go through where your organization depends on one or two people. And now that bandwidth of your entire department, knowing every step of the process, is spread out over your entire front line. And that is a thing that is just beautiful, to be able to come to work and literally enjoy that entire experience, where you're not held captive as a dealer by one or two people that know all of the tricks of the trade, if you will. Now those tricks of the trade have been defined by a process that everyone follows. And now it's been dispersed. All of that empowerment has been dispersed across the front line. And I would just say this is that, the one thing that I've noticed is that in the event that we did have somebody that left us, many of those people asked to come back. And their comment was this, is that when I left, I didn't believe that, one, we could do it. And two, I was afraid. I was afraid that they couldn't do it. So when they left and they came back, this was the really unsolicited comments that we got from them, is that basically they saw the future of the way cars should be sold, and they couldn't think that working for that other store was going to help them get further in their career. They came back because they felt as though that they had seen what right looked like, and now they wanted to come back and be a part of it. And I think that's probably the best indicator as a dealer, is what are your people saying? Do they love being a part of that system? Do they love, not having all the answers and only a few people having all the power? And then what do customers think after that? What do they think about these systems that we've decided that have been in place for years? And we were a part of that for over 30 years. What do they experience when it just doesn't make sense to them? So I think all of us as dealers, we're all really good people. I've met some great dealers through the years, and there's just a hidden enemy out there, and that enemy is the old system, and it literally is working against the way that we are already interacting with every other business that we do business with. This just modernizes the local dealer and allows them to be relevant in a way that people can buy cars and enjoy the process, not compare it to having a dentist trip or some type of surgery, that they can literally come in and enjoy the process because they feel like they're a part of it. And at the same time, our people can be honored in a way like we've never honored them before, not treated as a commodity that, well, we'll just hire an extra 5 salespeople and, I want to staff up because the last group didn't work out. No, those people are valuable now because they have so much power and so much knowledge that allows us to treat our people great. And there's only good things that come from that, Chip. So I think there's many points that have been made here, but it's been a great joy for us to be a part of this.
Well, the distilled wisdom that has flowed from you all around your experience, I think is unparalleled and unprecedented in the automotive retail world. What we've heard for the last little over an hour has I think, fertilized the thinking of, hopefully there'll be hundreds of dealers over the next few months that start to get this word, start to get this understanding. There's a movement out there now. It's a movement to change how automotive retail works, to build it, around the idea of what does an ideal customer experience look like? If you're going to start from scratch and design an experience, as the man from Mars coming beep, beep, beep down to planet Earth, you say, well, we'll have one person sell the car. They'd sit in front of one screen. It would take less than an hour. It wouldn't be stressful. It would be very transparent. And we could still desk, we could still do menu. And as Ryan says, a whole lot of F&I product is going to get sold because trust and rapport are being built. So that ideal experience actually does exist. It isn't an ivory tower. It's real. And you all have really, I think, provided great testimony, personal testimony that it can be done. It's not rocket science. The people doing this don't have S's on their shirts. They're normal people who have been led by folks who have a vision and are willing to take on the work to reorganize a store, get it out of its groove, create new processes, new pay plans, use new tools that empower people to deliver an experience that delights car buyers unlike anything else. So I'd like to have each of you just get one last word in for the benefit of our audience. TJ, what would be your parting thought, and then we'll finish this up. Parting thought.
Yeah, Chip, thank you. I really appreciate being a part of this today. It's I think those of us who have been a part of this are passionate about what we do and passionate about making changes in the industry that are positive for our guests and even more importantly, positive for our employees so that they can create positive experience for our guests. I guess the last kind of selling point on a seamless process like this that I'll leave you with is, I think COVID has taught us a lot of things. And to me, what COVID has taught us is that it's so important to meet guests where they are in the journey. That putting something so ironclad out there that's got to transfer from a salesperson to a manager to a closer to a finance department is painting yourself into a corner and putting yourself into a maze that's completely unnecessary. And when you've got a client advisor who has that empowered perspective and knows where they are in the transaction and knows where they started with the guest and can kind of meet that guest where they are, it changes things. And when a guest feels like where they are in the process is where they're met by their client advisor, and that client advisor can take them on that journey quickly and efficiently, it changes that adversarial role into a partnership. And so, again, I would encourage anybody who's on this call that is having a hard time wrapping your head around it, take the time to talk to your customers, take the time to talk to a few of your client advisors about something like this, and get some honest feedback. And I'm sure after a little bit of time, you'll realize it's time to pull the trigger.
Thank you, TJ. Ryan, any parting thoughts from you?
That anybody that's looking at this system and thinking that this selling format is not going to work, you're unfortunately lying to yourself on that side. It works fantastic, but really what's really come a long way for us is our customer satisfaction on that side. Our Google reviews prove it. Our Dealer Rater reviews prove it. Our BMW Store Run Dealer Rater of the Year 2 years in a row after launching this. It is that one seamless process that all of our clients want, but they can't find at other dealerships. So then they come here and they see it, and it actually happens, and it does work, and they buy into it, and then they end up referring more people to us just because it was a seamless, easy transaction that luckily makes the dealerships a lot of money on that side. So I think that's about it.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Brandon, parting thoughts.
Yeah, I would just share the same thing that we share with every one of our new employees when they come to work for us on day one, which is we are changing the automobile industry and the way that cars are being bought and sold. And that's a really easy thing to get behind. We didn't used to be able to say that. Day one in training it was just about, let's just get you through this. And now we can cast vision, we can inspire, and they can really see the difference. Unfortunately, one of the things in our secret sauce is we actually mystery shop other dealers who still do business the old way. And it's really interesting when they can compare that with the way that we do business, and the light bulb goes off in their mind, and they see, oh my gosh, what a huge advantage I have over that salesperson across the street. And so, and of course, anybody on this call that would want to come for a visit, we're always welcome. You guys were welcoming us to your home, and if we can do it, anybody can do it.
Well, on that note, thank you very much, gentlemen, for sharing your precious time, insights, learnings, passion, commitment, vision. I think it means a lot to our audience and to the dealer body generally to know that there's a shining light, and you all are experiencing it, you're living it, you're producing it, you're making it happen. You're self-inventing a new model that leverages the traditional strengths of being a physical dealership. You're not copycatting the disruptors. You're doing it better than they are, because you're delivering an experience that's personal and end-to-end. And my great thanks to you all for your time. I'm sure we'll be getting a lot of questions about this. Appreciate your business. Look forward to working with you for many years to come. Thank you again for your time today.
Thank you, Chip.
Thank you.